Yeah. And I hear a lot of times people talk about community building stuff and how, well, I can't waste instructional time, and I think that if it really makes what you do the rest of the year so much more efficient and so much more successful if you can take just a little bit of time to try to build that community at the beginning of the year. It can really have an impact down the road, and so I think it's an important thing to at least spend a little bit of time with at the beginning of the year. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned something about like having community meetings.
Yeah.
Or class meetings with your class. When you do those, do you usually designate, or when you're suggesting that as something to implement, do you suggest it being just a portion of the class, or an entire like?
Yeah, just a portion. And for us, when I taught sixth grade, I was on a team with just one other person, and our schedule was very, very flexible. It was less rigid, so we just did it every Monday morning, and before we'd like switch for the day, and kind of like the homeroom thing. And so we just did it that way, and it was like 10 minutes. And we did it most Mondays, but not every Monday. But we would try to just see how the kids were doing, see how things are going, and it starts things off like no matter what happened over the weekend or what happened last week, you just kind of just set a positive tone for that week, and that's really what the goal is. It's just to get that mind frame just a little more positive. Any other thoughts? All right. So let's go into the second one, which is teacher leadership and management in a classroom. And these leadership and management are really two different things. You can think of management as the way that the daily sort of routines and expectations you have set up, whereas leadership tends to be your vision you have for your class. What is it that you want out of that class? What is it you want students to be able to do? And so this is a far side from a few years ago, obviously, but Mrs. Muntner liked to go over a few of her rules on the first day of class. If we try to do this to kids, it's obviously not going to work very well. And they're going to have those eyes like that. So this is a scenario that we're going to take a look at. This is Mrs. Creighton's class, and there's two slides of just to kind of go over this. And hopefully you can read it. I tried to make it as big as I could. But I know the second one's a little bit smaller, so I'll probably leave that one up there. But it just describes her classroom. And then at the end of it, just take a second and try to think about suggestions for how she could improve her management. Okay, how could she improve what she does in her classroom? And so take a second, read the scenario, and then just jot down some ideas of how you would improve her management plan and her leadership in the classroom. All right, guys, if you can hear me, clap twice. Thank you. All right, so what suggestions we have from Ms. Creighton?
She needs to develop a rubric.
A rubric for what?
For the assignment itself. So the kids will understand exactly what she wants done. She'll have a set of specific instructions for the kids to actually follow instead of verbally telling them what she wants done.
Good. There's two sets of expectations that we're really concerned with in the classroom. The first is obviously behavior. The second is that academic part. Is that we want to make sure we're communicating clearly what our goals are for kids. What's quality work for those goals? What are we looking for? Because if kids don't know what's expected of them, it's a lot harder for them to actually produce that. And so making those expectations clear is a very powerful thing in the classroom. Yeah.
We were saying back here that you needed some sort of preparation when it comes to organizing the kids, calling out names of students and telling them where to go. That sounds like chaos. So she could have typed up in like Excel and put them in groups and have everybody saying what they're going to do, or randomly assign playing cards or color paper or numbers or something to have them go different places instead of just calling it out at the front.
Good. Yeah. And so there's that part too. What about the way that she gave instructions? To everybody? Both of those things are going to take a lot of time away from kids can be learning. And so one of the things management does for us is it creates flexibility. It gives us a lot more flexibility as teachers with being able to get kids up, moving around, go to different places. If we have routines in place, those transitions become really easy. Yeah.
Just reading it seems like she's new to this whole
got to build step by step, and those routines are a really important thing to have in place before we expect kids to be able to go off and do that. Yeah.
Instead of the kids coming to her when they have questions, she should be circulating an assistant.
Yep.
That's what
If she
seemed
says that,
It seemed like they said that the kids need to come to her
Yeah.
if they had questions.
Yeah. Making sure to circulate the room is important.
Out, they should have to-
That'll cut that out too. Did you have your hand up? Oh, same thing. Okay. Yeah.
Another suggestion would be to give all of the kids in a group a different responsibility,
Good.
but also give them something specific that they have to do so that it all ties into the entire group project. For instance, someone could be the word searcher, and they can search out different words and look them up, or someone can be the illustrator and they can draw pictures, or everyone will have a duty that has to tie in to the overall project, so it's just not one person writing everything up. Everyone has a piece to add, everyone has a piece of the completed project.
Yeah, and I think the idea of like group work, true, really good group work happens when there's a combination of some group project or product or discussion and then some individual component as well. And we need to kind of have both of those if we want some successful group work. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say also she could give them a checklist for each responsibility for a group that the group has, and just sign off on it when they're complete to give them some accountability.
Some record keeping type stuff like that. Good. Jerry.
At the end, instead of them turning in unfinished work, which kind of creates habit of turning in unfinished work, either she can give that group an additional time the next day, or she can assign it as homework, depending on what the activity is or what your concept is. That
Good.
I just want to encourage them turning in unfinished work.
Yeah. I mean, it's not showing me you learned anything if it's not finished. So we want to make sure to, and again, this is where these routines come in, is that flexibility to be able to, in the next day, build in some time for that. Yeah.
I would also like to see kids present what they did to the rest of the.
Have a discussion. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that group sharing thing is really important. If kids are working in isolated groups and there's no coming back and sharing, then you don't get that true learning that happens as a whole class there. Any other thoughts from Ms. Creighton? Yeah.
Just going back to the whole setting up of the lesson, I remember reading, she was saying that she has a lot of different readiness levels,
Mhm.
and also she was saying that she might want them to do it pick their assignment based on their interest. So first thing she has to decide which way is she going to go. Is she going to go by readiness, or is she going to go by interest, and decide which data she's going to use, and then that's going to make it the lesson better. But you can't say, okay, I'm going to do readiness, I'm going to do interest. She has to pick which
Yeah.
which road she wants to go down.
Focus in. Yeah. Good.
and I was gonna piggyback on that within any class, you're gonna have those levels of readiness.
Absolutely.
And because you want students to be successful, teachers I feel, have to be really thoughtful about how you're gonna start out. And so, okay, I'm not gonna send my group of students who I know they take a long time to warm up to sub to a really challenging, where you have to read and
Mhm.
really think about what you need to do. I'm not gonna send that to that activity first.
Right.
I'm gonna warm them up and then get them going and moving through that.
Mhm.
And I've always been a big believer in ask three before me. So
Yeah.
it's like talk amongst yourselves. Brian, you can figure that out.
Yeah.
Then, if you need assistance, I'm here.
Yeah, that's a good rule too. Because a lot of times, and there's another thing I've used. Have you guys seen the traffic light cups before?
Yeah, we were talking about that.
So that's another thing too. The traffic light cups are you have a red, yellow, and green cup, and depending on during group work, they stack the cups, and whatever cup's on top is sort of the status of the group. So if the green cup's on top, it means they're working fine. If there's a yellow cup on top, it means they have a question, but they can keep working. And if it's a red cup, they need help as quickly as you can get over there. And what I've found with using that and seeing that in the classrooms is that the kids who put the yellow cup on, that middle level, they tend to work through their problems a lot of times. Like they'll work through the questions they have, and so they're not relying on just like, oh, teacher, all the time. And so it makes them a little more self-sufficient within those groups if you put that middle kind of, that yellow cup there. So those traffic light cups are a good management tool as well. All right, good ideas from Ms. Creighton. One of the things we need to keep in mind talking about classroom management is it really is inseparable from academic instruction. The two are very interdependent. I think all classroom elements really are. If you think about assessment too, we can't. We need to make sure that we're assessing what we teach, and we also need to make sure that we're teaching what we're going to assess. And so I think it's important that both of those are there.